What's up, everyone? Today we have a video I wasn't actually going to make, but then an interesting problem came around and wanted to make a video on that. So this is a walker. It's a overly expensive, in my opinion, machine, but it is a very heavy duty, very well built machine, so you get what you pay for. Point is, it's having a variety of problems, one of which is going to make it a little annoying for us to test this, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. But one of the cylinders, I think, is not firing. I've done a few things to this. One of them is I took out the spark plugs, and this one came out of the cylinder that's closest to the seat, and then this one, however, though, that one was a completely different story. I mean, it almost looked like it was about to bridge over, or even did at one point, and I just broke it off. I don't know. So that cylinder is the one that has the bad plug, or did. That one has a good plug. The only thing I've done to this so far is I've charged the battery because it's a little low, and we're going to be cranking it a little more. I'm going to have to put a little fuel in it. The dipstick was jumping up and down, so I firmly planted it. And I turned it on, and basically it's just bad. And what I mean by bad, I mean is this. It is pumping out an excessive amount of black smoke, which is unburnt fuel. It's either a carb problem or one of the cylinders is not running right. Now, I'm going to go through, maybe do a valve adjustment at a later point in time. I don't know. We'll get to that point when we get there, but I want to make sure both cylinders are firing before we do anything. So what I'm going to do, one of the problems, like I said, is going to make it so I have to put this whole thing back down every time, but I'm going to disconnect each one, leave one running. It will still run, but if it doesn't turn on at all, we know the one that I disconnected is going to be the good cylinder, and the other one is going to be the bad cylinder. I'm going to try the bad cylinder first. I'm going to see if it runs exactly the same way as it did before. Now, usually you would not have to do this. You could just unplug the plug wires as it's running. If you hear a change, that's your good cylinder. If you don't hear a change, that's your bad cylinder. That's easy. On a 2-cylinder, it's even easier. If you have a dead cylinder and you unplug the other one, it just dies. So one of the problems with this is it doesn't have a brake cable, and the transmission's a little glitchy. I'll just put it that way. That's one of the things I'm going to have to be fixing here shortly. So we're not going to be able to do it the normal way, so that's why we're going to do it this way. So let's go ahead. I'm going to disconnect the problem cylinder, that cylinder, and see if it... You know what? No, I'm going to disconnect the good cylinder. Let's try to limit how many times we do this. It will run. Just imagine me sitting on it and, you know, chug, chug, chug. Even when it's on full throttle, there's still a decent amount of smoke coming out. So it's a little odd. So I'm hoping it's a dead cylinder. I never thought I'd say this, but I hope it is. And yeah, we'll go from there. Here soon, I'm going to be doing a safety video. And one of the things I'm going to mention in here is when you are using gasoline, you should not do this in a enclosed garage. So don't. That's why it's facing the garage door, and we don't have to worry about that currently. Ugh, this is awkward to get on because it's wet. I don't really feel like slipping on it. So keep that in mind. The choke is on. Throttle is like 3/4 of the way. And action. I smell a whole lot of fuel. That's what I smell. Okay. Just to be on, just try to clear it out. I'm gonna turn off the choke and then crank it over a little bit more. This is why I charged the battery fully, because we're gonna be doing this probably a decent amount. Yeah, it should have ran by now. So you did, I don't know if you can hear it, but it did kind of try to pop. So with you still watching, let's switch it. This is one heavy machine. It's supposed to be easier. And it is, don't get me wrong. But it's still heavy. Okay, yeah, I'm just verifying the choke was off. And it is. So now, let's disconnect this spark plug. Reconnect this spark plug. There we go. Make sure that's nowhere to be close to the plug. It can jump over if the plug wire is close enough to the plug. So when you disconnect it and you do this, you want to make sure that the plug wire has some space. Ugh, wet. Okay, choke is on, throttled, and let's try it. Oh, that means there was fuel in the muffler, or somewhere around that area. Let's turn off the choke. That's idle. So like I said, that could be a carb problem. If it did more or less the same thing every single time. It does not. It only does it when one is working. So, and that's a brand new plug, by the way. The plug that's in there, brand new NGK. It's never been used. I opened it right before I was testing it. I do, however, I want to take a compression test to see, do we have compression in that cylinder? And if we do have compression, then we were going to maybe test the coil itself. When you do this, hopefully you don't fall over, but actually you probably will fall over. Now that you're safe, when you do this, no choke, full throttle. I've also disconnected the good spark plug. Hopefully there's no safety. I don't think there is though. Well, that's not good at all, is it? That did not move one bit. Okay. Yeah, no compression. Maybe we have a stuck valve. Which would be unfortunate. I'm gonna do a little thinking. Unfortunately, I think we have a sad ending to this story. So I took a long screwdriver, like so. Took the valve cover off, by the way. 1 second. And I spun the engine around, which, trust me, is no easy task because of how the belts and everything are on this machine. And put the screwdriver down. I watched the intake stroke both open and close. So when I put it down, it should have been pretty close to the top. I mean, the spark plug is a little long, so you would expect it to be a pretty good distance down. But I'll show you. Oh. From the too small in this garage. From the spark plug hole, it's that far down. And I thought, maybe there's something wrong internally. The cam slipped, and the lobes have moved, and the piston's still moving. Maybe it just needs a new cam, or a couple different things. Then, let's go ahead and push it back in. That way you can kind of see it yourself. When you push it in, let's clean it off. Well, I guess it's what came out of it anyway. I swear that's never a problem. When you twist it, you should see it move. See the exhaust valve moving right now? And it's not like this is getting tight or anything. So it should have moved at least a little bit. It's not moving at all. So that tells me the connecting rod is trashed. Yeah, it's unfortunate because we don't know the depth of the damage. If the connecting rod broke, let's look at the oil. Now the oil dipstick was having a hard time. Where's a rag? It was having a hard time staying in place, so I'm thinking maybe a whole lot of dirt had found its way in there and just causing all kinds of problems. Let's find out. I mean, there is oil in there, and it is at the right level. Can I have a half a mile? Well, actually, no, I don't. Certain parts are magnetic, aluminum is not, and the connecting rod is aluminum. Something you can do is you can take the filter off, the oil filter, because it does have one, and we can open it up and check for pieces. That's really just going to tell you if there's connecting rod pieces in there, which we know there is. That's really not going to help. And yeah, so unfortunately I'm gonna have to cut this short. I was hoping that we could go and do other things, but it's gonna need to rebuild. That's not cheap. I looked on the internet. You can buy kits for this, but they are, depending on the style kit, they go as low as $60, but that does not include a connecting rod. It only includes the piston. We do not need that. The ones that we need, I think the cheapest one I found was $119, but that was a pretty sketchy one. And yeah, and here's another problem. If that scored the wall, it's not even worth it. If it's lightly scored, we can hone it and we can, take care of it that way. If it's heavily scored though, you would have to machine it out and get new piston rings that are oversized, and maybe even an oversized piston too. Who knows? But that is expensive. So, to add a little value to this video, what would be the next thing if we saw the screwdriver go up and down? Well, that means the piston's working, and generally that would mean that there's a valve problem. It still could be a piston problem, but generally it would be a valve problem. At that point, we would look at the valves and try to go as close to top dead center as we can, and we would see if there's any valve lash. If there is valve lash, then we might have just a poor seal. We might have to do a valve adjustment. Maybe it's just not enough of a valve lash, who knows. If there was an excessive amount, we could be dealing with a valve seat that could be popped out, and maybe we could just pop it back in, and potentially we'll have to either buy a new head if it damaged it, or a new valve. Or if it didn't damage hardly anything, we could just pop it in there and regrind the valve seat and call it good. We don't have that problem. Our head is fine. So I'm gonna go ahead and contact the owner. If you have any questions, if you are having something similar, let me know, and then I can ask you. I can go over a different route. But if you are seeing no movement on this with no compression, the engine's dead. Last bit, could you use this moving forward? Yes, most definitely so. You could use this for quite a while probably. The problem with that is this. The longer you use it, the more likelihood of the pieces getting into the valve, the gear on the cam, on the crank. The pieces that are just showing on there on the bottom can work their way into 1,000 different small crevices where you don't want any metal pieces. So you are on borrowed time if you do that. Not to mention, it's already unbalanced, and you don't really want to deal with that because it wasn't meant to run that way. Okay, well, hopefully this helped you out. If you have any questions, definitely leave them below. I'll see you in the next video. Subscribe. Have a good night.